Good evening. Welcome to Inside View. My name is Cliff Edson, and before we get started, I'd like to just give a little plug for our San Andreas Rotary Club. Here in San Andreas, we do a lot of community work, and there's my plug. So if you see an event by us, please give us some support. And with us tonight, we have Rich Lundin. Rich Lundin is a scientist, and we're going to be talking about COVID. And I'm extremely excited about this because of all of the stuff that's going around on social media and everything else. So, hi, Rich. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
Good.
And I'm very glad to be here, and I'm very glad to give a message that this will pass.
Good.
But most people will end up having some variant of COVID as it passes.
So could you tell us a little bit about your background and about yourself? I'm interested.
I'm a consultant geologist and archaeologist, a 72-year-old, and with 50 years in the mining industry and 35 years doing archaeology. And as a trained anthropologist, I know that people have these sorts of disasters in cultures over time. And the Great Plague of London, and in the reign of King Charles II was one of them, and it was only extinguished by the Great Fire of London. But these things, if we understand how they work, can be taken care of. And it's unfortunate that the MERS and SARS epidemics that were instigated also in China burnt out so quickly before they really understood how these novel type diseases, influenza type diseases, work. And now they're working really hard to understand it.
Yes. So, so you mentioned China, and could you give us a little bit of information on COVID-19 and China?
Well, COVID-19 in China, I've been watching the BBC, and the BBC is not very happy with China right now. And but they have had a lot of people who came from Hong Kong and went into China very, very early. And now the COVID in China is not associated with a market. It's associated with personal communication, and it may be associated with studies of bats. And all these things suggest that COVID is more prevalent in China than the Chinese feel. And we're seeing the Chinese government, especially the Communist Party, is tailoring the information that comes out of China to say, yeah, we've got this thing beat. Well, independent observers from other countries and from the WHO and the CDC say, no, that's not the case. It's still out there and it's mutating. And so that's a real situation in China still. It's still a hotbed, and it has been a hotbed for many years, of these viral pandemics. And they've lost a lot of people over the years. But on the same time, they put the people back to work in the factories, and because, as we have seen in this United States, that when you put people into seclusion, you end up with a situation that there's a tremendous economic loss to the country. So China, from the work that I have looked at, and also the work that my wife, Dr. Claudia Brackett-Lundin, who is a chemist, has looked at, is that we're in for a long run on this one. And I'm really concerned about the situation in really populated countries like India, Brazil, and Malaysia, and these countries that have large populations congregated into small areas.
Well, not only just large populations congregated in small areas, which obviously is really dangerous, But the fact that many of those countries don't have a lot of education on things like this for hygiene, personal hygiene, and taking care of themselves to be able to avoid some of the negative results of this. Is that something that is important as well?
Yes, absolutely. I've done work in my early career in New Guinea and Mexico and Dominican Republic and over in Saudi Arabia as a geologist and as an archaeologist. And I've seen that the people in the outlying areas that have a rural lifestyle and stick pretty much to themselves and their nuclear family, those people don't get sick. The people that do get sick are in the cities where they have a lot of interpersonal interactions. And that's where I came into conflict with what the Chinese were saying, that it was all coming from a market. Well, it wasn't. And then their own people said it was from interpersonal relations. And so you've got to cut that down. And as we've discussed, this is very similar in description to what Tom Clancy, the author, described in his book, Executive Orders. That was out a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the pattern was there for that. And then his previous book, Debt of Honor, was a blueprint for 911. But anyway, that's getting off the subject.
Okay. So I know that the U.S. has gone through the first shutdown, and that allowed us to get a little bit of a hold on what this thing is, and how we should treat it, and and how we should move forward in the future. What kind of suggestions would you have for us being able to sustain our living? Because this isolation thing can carry a heavy burden as well on everybody.
Well, what we do is we live in a house, and I'll have the first slide, that is surrounded by gardens. And we have noticed that the people around us and in the area had decided that they're going to take their garden produce, and there's been a profusion of farmers markets, and they're making money any way they can. And so even though they are under the cloud of the COVID, you've got a situation that people are adapting, and they're trying to make money any way you can without being exposed untowardly to the COVID virus. Does that answer that?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually done a few things similar. We grow a lot of stuff in our own garden, and I built a chicken coop.
Good for you.
Well, I didn't do it all myself, but we have some chickens now, and we're trying to be more self-sufficient. But it still takes a beating it still gives a beating to the economy. There's these little restaurants, these little businesses that are just small mom and pops. They're hurting.
Oh, they're hurting, all right.
Yeah.
And with the regulations coming down for phase 2 stuff and even phase 3, the restaurants have to go to a fair amount of expense in order to have any customers. We just had restaurants meal this morning for breakfast, and we were put into a cubicle with plastic all around us, and the people were all gloved and with masks on, but it still worked, and they still got the stuff done. And my profession as a consultant geologist, we see that the areas of Nevada that have COVID spikes are the major towns, and then out there in the hinterlands, there's no COVID at all. The ranchers are separated, they're self-sufficient, the miners in the mining towns, self-sufficient, and so there are ways to do this. And apart from the people that are coming into the major towns from areas like LA or from the Bay Area, there are no hot spots that can be detected from the local populations because they don't want to die.
Right. So let's move on to some of the remedies, or some of the things that we can do as a preventive action.
Okay. One thing that we do, and next slide, please. Oh, there's the first slide. That's our house, and we live in that and up in Confidence. And the next one, please. There. We go out with small groups, and we take field trips that are set up very specifically for us to be separated. And we're through Calaveras Gem and Mineral Society, and I'm the past president of it. And we took a field trip out, and we were looking for some rocks and minerals. And so people like to do that. They like to get out. And if they separate apart from each other and come in their own cars and don't share a meal, this type of thing works. Another thing that we've done, next one, oh, that's me. Next one, please, is there are hundreds of miles of trails by either the ditch systems here in Calaveras and Tuolumne County, or the old railroad grades. And we see hundreds and hundreds of people every day going out there, separating, gloved, with masks. And this is very, very important. And I have some colleagues that say that this is a situation that people have to do in order to maintain their sanity. It's the areas where you have people all confined and can't get out and can't do anything in the cities is when unrest occurs.
Okay. Let's talk about masks for a moment. I know that's a really hot issue on all social media. I see posts going back and forth, and in some pretty distraught things that I read. And so my concern with masks are that the way people handle them, and the fact that they're not properly instructed or trained for mask handling or disposal, and that leads to other problems, and including COVID. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, we believe highly in masks. And in our little household of two of us, my wife is the mask Nazi, and she also is out there with the hydrogen peroxide squirt bottle. So we wear masks as instructed by our physicians who have to deal with the public every day. They are the providers. He said, wear the mask, don't take them off. I know they smell bad, but wash them out, and possibly in Clorox, and then wear them again. But keep wearing them, because these masks are your lifeline for not being dead.
So you're talking about the cloth masks?
Yes, we're talking about the cloth masks. I also wear a bandana when I'm in the field. And a bandana is easier for me when I'm in the field doing geology or archaeology, because I can just pull it down. But it's a double thickness bandana. And I've been used to wearing a bandana in the field for years.
For dust and things like that.
Yeah, for dust. And so we're real proponents of the use of masks, but masks have to be used regularly, and though they're uncomfortable, though they smell kind of bad, that's what we have to pay. That's the cost we have to pay for being alive.
Right. So a cloth mask like yours, the one you have on the table here.
Yes.
This one here can be used how many times?
What we've been told with these cloth masks, we can use it once a day and then washed and rinsed out at night. And with that, you can use it up to 5 times before you have to get another mask.
Okay.
And we have a bunch of homemade masks. Claudia's really good at making masks.
Looks like it. She's done a great job on that.
Yes.
So what about your N95 masks?
I'm not familiar with those because I've got a wife that makes these for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to.
Or surgical mask?
Oh, surgical mask. Yes. My orthopedic surgeon schooled me on using surgical masks and also the vents as because I do have some issues from past surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
And so but I asked Jack, how about our mask? And he said, just as long as you wear them and wear them carefully, and don't do like people do, is pull them down and this type of thing, because you're trying to keep the COVID out of you, and you're trying to make this as comfortable as you can while you're wearing it.
Right. So also, what about folks when they fiddle with them, right? They get their fingers underneath it, on the inside, and just...
No, that's crazy. That's just crazy, because you could have, unless you have washed your hands or have gloves on or have used disinfectant on your hands, you can have the stuff and you're putting it right underneath the mask. That's no good.
Yeah, these are some of my concerns. Now, I know the N95 mask is good for preventing from anything from coming to you, but it has a direct port out, so if you're infected,
Yep.
it's gonna just send it straight out. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right under his hand.
Good. Okay, so so the other question that I had was, I know people that have had COVID and recovered from it. And but what I don't know is what they go through in the process. So I know somebody that's had a common, like a common cold, was over it, and it was diagnosed as COVID, and it was over in 5 days. But I don't see anything out there that says, okay, you're free to go. You're free to go out into the public again once you're healed with the COVID. And so those are questions that I think a lot of people would like to hear about.
Okay. I have been tested twice. I was tested once, a routine blood test at the very beginning of all this. And I asked them to test me for COVID at that time. And it came back that I had the antibodies for COVID, SARS, and MERS. And then this was a mystery. This was back in early March. And so I was wondering where it came from. I knew I had a very bad cold that went into pneumonia in November of 2018. And but then I was required by FEMA to be tested again before I could be activated by FEMA.
Okay.
And so what it is this, that from what I can understand, those of us that are in advanced age, I'm 72, and I've had 4 joint replacements over the years, and I've been injured, I was shot, and this sort of thing. But when you have these existing conditions you're very vulnerable to COVID. And even though I am supposedly right now, I'll probably go down to Ridgecrest and get another physical and take more blood then, whatever. But what I've been told is even though you have the antibodies in your body, they don't last. And so you could be getting it again, or you could, as a lot of the young people are doing right now, they got COVID. Okay, they had a little mild COVID attack, and then they went to see grandma. And they had a group, like a birthday party, like what happened up in Tuolumne County. And all the people got sick. Well, they infected a lot of people and they thought they were fine. So I think we're all going to end up with some variety of COVID antibody in our bodies, or SARS or MERS or something else, because it's all mutating. That's what the studies coming from the UK say, and also from France, that this stuff is mutating pretty fast.
Okay. So we're going to have to rely on medications then to...
We're going to have to rely on medications. This is for long haul. This is almost like the common cold, but it's more lethal. And the common cold, I had some people say, "Oh, well, this is just some sort of communist trick, or it's no better than the cold sick." So I looked at the statistics. In a normal year, 70,000 people die of influenza or respiratory type ailments, and they're mostly 80% of them are in their 70 plus range, which I am. And so, okay. But then when the count went above 70,000, then all of a sudden we're dealing with people that are getting COVID and dying from it. And it's to a certain extent right now from the data that's coming out, and we watch the LA Times graphs every day, that the certain populations that don't separate and are very family oriented are getting it more, and they're passing it on to the older members of that family, and those people have a higher death rate. So I hope I didn't go too far.
No, that's fine. I'm interested in your opinion. So.
Yeah.
And now I noticed that that the death rate though is dropped quite a bit, and I can't help but to wonder if the when we first got this thing and we were first trying to get a hold on it, if the data was getting mixed up with other things like influenza, like other things that we normally have, and so it seems like now things are starting to settle down a little bit where they can get better data and really get a good idea on exactly what's going on, and how we can better handle the situations because of the better data. So what do you think about that? What do you think about at the beginning, we got rushed into this thing, it came on us like a train, and everybody's scrambling to try to get some data, but then there's also the information that we get that gets kind of mixed up.
Well, I look at countries that have, like New Zealand and Botswana and various other small countries that have jumped on it really quickly, and they're in a situation that they're saying, hey, look, foreign tourists don't come, students stay at home, take care of your people. And this is working. Now, as far as the data is, you have probably over 2,000 companies around the world trying to get the prize of like they did for Ebola. They get the prize of curing Ebola and getting either the Pasteur or the Nobel Prize for it.
Right.
And so everybody's working really, really hard. And one of the things I recommend heartily is there was the recent issue of Scientific American talked about the various types of approaches that are being taken. I was really happy when it was mistakenly stated by our fearless leader that chloroquine would be effective against it. Well, he was going from some good studies that were done in France. Those studies have not been repudiated. It just turned out that those people in that study were helped by that. But there are some people in Arizona that died from it. And I was about ready to order chloroquine from my doctor because I do have malaria. And, but that didn't work. But anyway, let's move on.
Okay. So we just have a couple of more minutes. And is there anything else you would like to cover in our discussion here?
Yes. And one of the things that I'd like to cover is this, is that when we have the next slide, please. Okay, no more. Okay. When we see what works as far as distancing, there is no reason to avoid doing projects if you put the safeguards right in the projects. We're working on an archaeological project just outside of our house. I mean, just a mile away, finding an old town site that's been burned. And we've established a system that the people can go out there and they can do good archaeological work without having any problems. But there are things, but we just have to use our minds and come up with these solutions within the context of what we've got.
Yeah, I think the issue, part of the issue is that it is an election year, and it all gets jumbled up and mixed up, and I think that I think we need just more trust.
Oh, a lot more trust.
More trust in this in the system, and less of so that we can't be confused on what needs to happen. Just like with the masks and things like that. But hey, I'd like to thank you for coming on to the show, and it's been really interesting. And thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I hope to bring you some more really great programming in the future. Thanks very much.